3 hours is the time I've ever spent in Kobe. It's not a whole lot, but you'll be amazed at what mere 3 hours can bring when traveling in Japan. The visit was part of a cherry blossom trip earlier this year, but the experience was unique enough that I think it deserves its own mini episode. I've always wanted to share with you the special moments in Japan that I hold very dear, and this is one of them. It was April. After a few days of cherry blossom non-stop, I traveled to Osaka for a Claude Monet exhibition held at the Nakanoshima Museum of Art. The exhibition was phenomenal, as you would expect. But when I finished, it was only around 6, a bit too early to get back to my hotel room in Kyoto and call it a day. So I pulled out Google Maps to see if there's anything I can do. Then something caught my eye. It was a viewpoint called Kikusei-dai on top of Mount Maya in Kobe, about an hour and a half from where I was, and it's known to offer a $10 million night view. In case you don't speak Japanese, Kikusei-dai means a place where you can get a scoop of the stars. It's such a poetic name, but does it live up to the $10 million price tag? I just had to find out. I left the museum and started walking towards Osaka Station. My path took me through a business area where people were getting off work, heading for drinks and chicken skewers. It was such an immersive close-up to the local salaryman's daily 9 to 5. Without the usual tourist crowds to blend in with, I felt like an outsider in a city I thought I knew pretty well for the first time. Osaka Station was as glorious and crowded as I remembered, and the train was an authentic rush-hour commuter experience. There were no seats, hardly any room to stand, but the only sound I could hear was the clink-clank of the train. If it were 15 years ago, I'd have my MP3 player blasting anime songs into my ears, but it's 2024 now. Nobody owns music anymore. Besides, smartphones and AirPods are just not the same. Getting off the train, it was just a little after 7, and it was time to catch a bus to the foot of the mountain. As I got further away from the heart of the city, there were fewer and fewer passengers left on the bus. In the end, I was the only one to get off at my stop. The streets leading to the mountain had a ridiculous incline that I didn't expect. I managed to reach the station at the foot of the mountain in about 15 minutes. Wait, what station? I'm glad you asked. You see, Kikusei-dai is at the top of Mount Maya. To get up there, you have to take a cable car halfway up, and then a ropeway all the way to the top. The price for a full round-trip ticket was 1,560 yen. It's definitely not cheap, but to think that it'll net me $10 million, it's a small price to pay. But come to think of it, isn't $10 million a strange thing to say? Is $1 million not good enough? And why dollars not yen? That's just weird. The cable car was still on its way down, so I had to wait for a bit. The station itself is a throwback to the olden days with its heartwarming Ghibli color palette. It looks like a relic from the past, but a very well-maintained relic from the past. Just be careful about wild Pokemons. I didn't have medical insurance for this region, so couldn't afford to faint here. After a short wait, the cable car slowly parked into place. It was the final piece of the puzzle to complete the pristine look of the station, and it was amazing. I had no idea how someone could put so much love into this obscure cable car station, but I loved it. This was the second to last ride of the day, so there were hardly any visitors besides myself. After getting my ticket checked, I waited anxiously for liftoff. Finally, at 8 o'clock, the driver-conductor came on board, and we started our climb to some very underwhelming elevator music. During the first part of the ride, I couldn't see the views yet, so it was largely unremarkable. The cable car slowly passed through the woods as it climbed, and everything was dark and quiet. After a few minutes, we arrived at our first stop, the Station of Rainbows. There used to be a resort hotel here built in 1929, which was then used as an anti-aircraft installation during World War II. It never really took off again post-war despite several attempts at its revival, and eventually got abandoned, becoming one of the most famous abandoned buildings in Japan. Now that's a sad story. Having transferred to the ropeway, we continued our slow but steady climb. I was looking at the summit and didn't realize I was already high enough for a glimpse of the view. When I turned around, I was blown away. The sheer scale of the nightlights and the incredible field of view were unlike anything I've seen before. I visited many observation decks in Japan, but nothing comes close to this. And this isn't even the full experience yet. When the ropeway finally came to a stop at the Station of Stars, I got out the carriage and followed the corridor onto a fluorescent path. At the end of the path, there it was, the entire universe, illuminated right before my eyes. It was truly phenomenal. From here you could see almost the entire Osaka Bay, including Kobe, Nishinomiya, Amagasaki, Osaka, and Sakai. If you looked far to your right, you could also see the Kansai International Airport, about 34 kilometers away, shining in the distance. It's pretty cool. The city lights stretched endlessly and shimmered like a sea of stars. Kikuseidai was, after all, a fitting name, but words could never truly capture the beauty of what I saw. It was mind-blowing, and it was overwhelming. The chill of early spring was particularly harsh on the top of the hill at night, but I stayed until the last ride downhill. I wish I could have arrived earlier, and maybe brought a shirt. I just wished I could have more time to appreciate the most unbelievable view I've ever witnessed in my whole life, and this is not an exaggeration. Riding the ropeway down, I took a final look at the $10 million night view and felt so glad I took that leap of faith. Sometimes beauty can be discovered through the most unexpected journeys. You just need to step out of the door. I hopped onto a bus to catch my train back to Kyoto. I wasn't sure if it was the right bus, but it was the only one left, and I had no other choice. I hope you enjoyed this short trip as much as I did. If you happen to be around, you should definitely visit Kikuseidai. I think you'll enjoy it. Just remember, bring a shirt.